talk first, I'll talk
4,
second.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our parent and family kindergarten literacy and math night. We're so excited that we're able to do this virtually. We'd love to be doing it in person, but obviously the circumstances exist that we can't, but we're still happy that we can bring this night to you. I'm Joanne Mannion. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and I have Eileen Anino, our K-6 Literacy Chair, and Genevieve Lacatuda, who is our K-12 Math Chair, and they're going to introduce themselves as well when they get on. But again, we are so happy to have you tonight, and we hope that this will be a very informative night to you as kindergarten parents. It'll be really exciting to learn about our curriculum. So I'm actually going to turn the meeting right over to our presenters.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Genevieve Lagatuda, Math Chair K through 12. We are so excited to have you with us tonight. We wish it could be in person, but we're hoping that we give you some information that will be helpful moving forward. And more importantly, we hope that your child has been transitioning well to kindergarten. We want to start this off on a positive note. So we are all very excited to be back in school, and we hope that your child is as excited as we are. So what we'd like you to do is to join our Padlet to share at least one positive experience that your child has had so far. When you get to the Padlet, and I'll explain how to get there, don't type in your name, don't include your child's name. We are live. Just put in the positive experience that your child has had. So what you're going to do is utilize your phone, the camera on your phone. You're going to hover over the QR code, which is going to take you to the Padlet. Once you get to the Padlet screen, it's going to look like a green chalkboard for school. And there will be a little plus sign in the corner. Typically, it's in the bottom right-hand corner. You can click on the plus sign to add your comments. All right, so we're going to give you a few minutes to do that. For those of you chiming in, we're just doing a quick share out on your end. You're hovering your phone over the QR code, which I'm just going to ask Eileen to go back to that page in case anybody missed it, and then we'll come back.
Okay, let me just see.
So for those of you just joining in, we're just taking a few moments for you to share a positive experience that your child has had so far. Again, we are very excited to have your children back in school with us. So you're just going to hover your phone over the QR code. It's going to bring you to something called a Padlet, which I'm sure you may have used before. We're all learning lots of new technology. And once you get onto the Padlet screen, which looks like a chalkboard, you're going to find the plus sign on your screen to add your comment. Just don't include your name or your child's name. This is being recorded. We just want to hear your feedback. And again, we hope that they're excited too. All right, so if you can't see the screen, I'm just going to shout out some of the positive experiences that we're seeing so far from your perspective of your child. Seeing his friends at school, loves learning and being around other kids, finds the new friend in virtual environment. Also very excited every day. Good, just like we are. That's great. My child loves the playground, interacting with other children, making new friends. Oh, we have some math in there. My daughter is excited for school every day. Many positive experiences. That one that stood out is when she came home and showed us what she learned in sign language. Wow.
Thankful for the virtual classroom. Wonderful math games such as Turtle Walk. Genevieve, you'll have to describe that, please, later.
So keep them coming. This is, it's so great to see this. Again, if you missed the QR code, Eileen is just showing that on the screen right now for you to add your comments. The more the merrier.
Okay, we'll go back to it later. We'll bring the Padlet up again to see what more, what other things populated.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Eileen Anino. I'm the K-6 Literacy Chairperson for Plainview Old Bethpage School District. I'm really excited to be here tonight and to welcome you to the beginning of your journey with POB schools. Tonight, I'll be discussing the literacy programs, what you can expect from your youngster, and ways to support them at home. This is a very exciting time in your lives and your children's lives, full of excitement, wonder, curiosity, and joy. I'm sure those first days of kindergarten, every parent talks about that with fond memories, putting their child on the bus and crying at the bus stop, saying they never expected to have that type of emotional reaction. I think the start of kindergarten. I'm very excited to talk to you tonight about our literacy programs in Plainview, Old Bethpage. They're just really programs to be proud of. So I'm going to start out by talking about foundational literacy skills.
Ms. Anino, I'm sorry, can I just interrupt you? Can you share, could you present on your screen? We're not seeing the large one.
Okay, wait a second. Yep. I hope that was better. I hope this is better.
Yes, great. You can just advance the slide.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
You know, I wanted everyone to be able to see it. Thank you so much. Okay, so foundational, I have to move my view of you guys up a little bit. So foundational literacy skills. The foundational literacy skills for reading and writing, you've already been working on at home with your own children. They've started at an early age in your homes. Activities that don't necessarily feel academic to you are actually the building blocks of literacy. So when you notice your child's the first letter in their name and you make a big celebration because they noticed that letter out in the world somewhere, conversations about nature, conversations about their curiosities, trips to the zoo and the library, all of these activities are providing a rich foundation, rich literacy experiences. When you have story time at home or in school, your child learns the beginnings of how books work. They understand that the words on the page are what provides the message. And they also gain an understanding of just the way where you would start reading and how the books work. The vocabulary that you're exposing your children to is richer than what would be typical at your dinner table. And additionally, you're offering a great deal of pleasure and enjoyment around books. So when that story time is a bedtime ritual and it's cozy and you're in a chair with a blanket, it becomes something where children begin to associate this activity, this literacy activity, with a pleasurable experience. So when we get into kindergarten, our school district uses the Teachers College Reading and Writing units of study. And these are developed by Teachers College, Columbia University. It's a research-based program. And along with the reading units of study, our teachers are given training by their specialists, their consultants who are the authors of the units, are actually coming into our schools and working with our students and our teachers. This year, they're doing it virtually. So actually throughout tonight's presentation, anything I mentioned that's routines and rituals of our school district, they are not always the COVID protocols. However, I'll try to, pivot off to explain what we've done to address this during COVID, but I really don't want to take too much time for that. We are trying to make learning in reading and writing as natural as possible throughout this pandemic. We are being trained virtually right now by our Columbia Teachers College consultants, but there's because we are affiliated with that college, we receive a great deal of support, and the units are fantastic. So these are the names of the kindergarten reading units. And the goal of the reading units in kindergarten is really to develop a love of reading, a strong foundation for reading, and particularly phonics, a knowledge of a variety of genres of texts, and the ability to discuss texts with others. So we try to imagine what real readers do, what adult readers do in real life, would be reading for a purpose, reading for pleasure, reading to enrich your lives, reading to learn about another culture. We always think of books as windows and mirrors. So windows being, this is a book that lets me see into the life of someone else that's unfamiliar, or mirrors, this book reminds me of myself, and I too have had that experience. In both reading, these are our writing units of study. And in both reading and writing, we work in what's called a workshop model. And that means that the workshop, that time of reading consists of a mini lesson, which is a brief lesson on grade level, an explicit teaching point that teach the children what they need to know next. They're sequential and they're tied to the unit of study. And then the child goes off and practices those things in an independent way. Either they're practicing independently with a partner or with teacher coaching. So the goal of writing is similar to that of reading. There's a lot of crossover in these two disciplines because the sounds and letters learned in reading are the same ones that they're trying to add to their writing. And I'll be more specific about writing process a little later in the presentation. Another one of our core literacy programs is Fundations. This is a structured sequential phonics program for our K-2 students. So it teaches not only the letters and the sounds of letters and how they go together, but also proper grip in handwriting and letter formation are taught. So what you're seeing on the screen is the paper that the young writers use has a plain line, a sky line, a grass line, and a worm line, showing the students how to form the letters. So if it's a tall letter or if it goes below the line, the students are taught proper letter formation, spacing. And these magnetic letter tiles are used to build words, take words apart, and manipulate words. This program goes from grades K-2 in our district. Now, very shortly, our teachers in kindergarten will be starting an emergent reading unit. And what this is when their teacher reads aloud books that are memorable. So these are books that are, well, memorable, but not necessarily memorizable. They have repeated language. They're fun books with a strong storyline. They have dialogue and high picture support. So teachers read them in a sing-song way, or they read the line that's repeatable in a sing-song way, and the students seem to latch onto it and they really enjoy these books. And then they can take the books, they're available in the classroom in multiple copies, and they take the books and they can sit and actually read, where they're not necessarily reading all of the words, but they are retelling the story using the strong picture support, and they're acting out the fun lines. These would not be books that a typical 5-year-old could read on their own, but the children feel successful, they feel like readers, and they're gaining lots of literacy knowledge doing this. Now, our books are leveled with an alphabetical system where the challenges increase by the letter of the alphabet. So with each book level, some complexity comes along with that book. I'm going to give you an example of that. But before A is there something called Concepts About Print. We actually refer to it as CAP. And this is where our readers are learning how print works on a page. They're learning book orientation knowledge, where you would start reading, how the print and the picture create a story. They're learning the understandings of simple punctuation marks. This is a video, I think this is a level B, but you'll get to see exactly how the teacher coaches the student in this video.
Time for tacos. Time for tacos. Take a taco shell, put in some sauce.
Good. Look at that word again. Is that sauce?
Beans.
Good girl.
Put in some tomatoes. Put in some pepper. Put in some cheese. Put in some sauce. Eat it.
Okay, so as you can see, that book highlights how a typical teacher coaching the reader. And the next video will show you how, let me see, how the text complexity increases. You'll see this has more lines, not such predictable text.
How can I help? How can I help? I can wash and dry the dish. How can I help? I can put my toys away. How can I help? I can feed my rabbit. How can I help? I can help take care of my baby sister. How can I help? I can water the garden. How can I help? I can make my bed. I can help get things done so there's more time for fun.
So as you can see, that last line, that last page was not as predictable as the others. And you could see how the text increased in complexity from the first story to the next. Now, the letters that are assigned to those books are not assigned to your children. So your child is not a level F reader. Your child is reading F level books. So I know sometimes people talk about, well, my child's an M. And we always caution against saying that, because sometimes a child can pick up a book that's on a topic of interest to them, and they can read something that's much higher, considered a higher level of complexity. So the books are leveled. The children are just advancing through the levels with teacher coaching and very good instruction. And what we do is we give them books that are in the range of their where we'll see a success rate for them, where it offers just enough challenge that it makes the child have to do a little work, have to do a little word solving, but not enough that it's frustrational. The other thing that you'll want to notice is that your children are asked to reread books a lot. And that is because the first time they may be word solving through the books. And then the second and third time that they're reading those texts, they're reading for fluency and smooth. We say like smooth like chocolate pudding, read it smooth like chocolate pudding. So those are the things that the teachers are working on. When you have books coming home every night, you don't have to do the instruction around the teaching of this. Let the teacher do that, but just read, let them read it again, let them read it for the first time to solve words, maybe the second time to sound like the characters. They can talk about the book, read to your child, have your child read to you. And the books don't have to be at their instructional level. You can actually just read to them at things that are much higher than their level. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the writing and how writing develops. Like I said, in Fundations, they teach the proper grip. And along the way, your young children move through a series of stages as they're learning to write. And this reflects the child's growing knowledge of the conventions of literacy, including letters and sounds, and the spacing of words within sentences. So we don't correct them. You know, you'll see maybe the teacher writes the word above what they did, they'll label it. We're entering very shortly into a unit of study called lists to label books, or labels to list books. So they'll be making list books, like repeating the word. The list will be, you know, things I love about fall, and then it will be leaves, and they'll just have to draw something and write. Paper choice is something that we encourage. The teachers have a variety of different papers for the children to choose, and that we really want to encourage choice with their topic selection, paper choice, anything that makes them feel like the author of their own writing. All the while they're being coached with sounds. Okay, so parents at your of kindergarten students typically ask, how can I foster the love of reading and writing at home? How can I support my child at home? So going to the library, making the library and a bookstore kind of a ritual. I know that the Plainview Old Bethpage Library does have curbside pickup for those of you who would prefer that. Order age-appropriate magazine subscriptions as gifts, give books as gifts. These are messages that you're sending about the way that you value that. And it's not only books these days. We've learned in this time of COVID that so many ways of reading. It doesn't have to be books. It could be online text. We're reading blogs. We're listening to podcasts and audiobooks, making lists and labels at home, write letters to family, create a family reading time, make it cozy, read books about a topic prior to a day trip, you know, to see, let's investigate that. Read aloud while the kids clean off the table, or the kids read aloud while the parents clean off the table. You can make a, you know, choose which night is which. Play word games. You know, the word games that are in the stores, those old fashioned ones are still great, like a Boggle or Scrabble and things like that, and make reading and writing a part of your life. There are websites linked here. I'm just going to go to this, and I will put this on the ELA page on our district website. But here's great websites for kindergarten literacy. Hold on one second. Okay, and children are made readers in the laps of their parents. So thank you. I know that we have a question, I think Padlet or a document. So any questions that come up, we will be answering at the end. I'm going to turn this over and stop screen sharing, turn it over to Ms. Lagatuda, and then we can answer questions at the end.
Yeah, so at the end of the presentation, we'll have a QR code that you can use to ask questions, and I'll be monitoring the questions and presenting them, and we'll try to get to as many as we can.
Hi again, everyone. So you'll notice in the, whoops, let me just go back. You'll notice on the first slide, there's a QR code that is there in case anyone would like to follow this presentation on your phone. If you're finding it difficult to follow on the screen, that's all that QR code. What Eileen mentioned before, there will be a QR code at the end. So keep track of any questions that you have. You know, I know I get forgetful sometimes, jot it down. And then when you have the opportunity at the end, we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So before I head into my slides, I just wanted to let you know for kindergarten, we are using the Go Math program now for K through 8. And the Go Math program for kindergarten typically has students beginning with writing their numbers from 0 to 5. And in speaking with the kindergarten teachers, we realized it was very overwhelming for them to start writing numbers and letters at the same time. So over the summer we did some curriculum writing, And we actually added some shapes at the beginning of the year. We will be reiterating shapes at the end of the year and throughout the year as we spiral. However, we wanted the students to come into kindergarten seeing something that they were familiar with. So we figured shapes would be a great place to start and give them a chance to easily transition to kindergarten while learning to write their letters. So I just wanted to let you know about that little change. What we get a lot from parents is, how do I help my child at home? So what is wonderful about the Go Math platform is there's a digital component to it as well. And so some of you feel that you've been out of school for a while, and although you know how to do this math, maybe you're not presenting it in the same way that your child is learning it in school. And that's where this program can be very helpful for you. So I'm going to take you through how to get onto the digital platform, which is why we asked you to have your child's district username and password ready. Not that you have to do it right now, but some of you might want to go along with me as we're going through the slides, just to make sure that you can access the digital platform for Go Math. All right, so I'm going to take you through that. So the first thing is, how do we log into Go Math from home? And they could do this at school as well, but again, when you're at home and you're looking for a semblance of what they've done in school, this is where you're going to go. So right on the district's homepage, you would click on the word students. If you actually click on the word students, it's going to bring you to ClassLink. And it's through ClassLink that the students will be able to access not only their apps for math, but for other courses as well. All right, and this is the page where you would enter your child's username and password, the same one that they would use when logging into a computer at school. Okay, so if anybody wants to go along with us, these are the steps. So you may be looking for the words Go Math to emerge when you get to this page. It's actually called Think Central. So Go Math has the Think Central platform for the elementary level, and then My HRW for the middle school level. So you're going to look for something that says Think Central, and that is our Go Math program. When you enter this successfully, you're going to get to a page that looks like this. What your child may want to do initially when getting onto the digital platform is to check things to do. Sometimes the teacher will assign something called a personal math trainer for additional practice, or perhaps the homework is being delivered through a personal math trainer. And if that's the case, your child will find that assignment in things to do. So I always recommend that you always check things to do to see if there are any assignments there. But for you as the parent, let's say that you want to bring up a lesson from school at home. Maybe your child would like to see it a second time. So this is now what you would do with your child at home. So how to engage in a Go Math lesson. So back on this page, you would click on My Library. And you'll notice there are several icons on this page. And the one that you want to go to is called the Interactive Student Edition. I will come back to what the other icons will help you do, but the Interactive Student Edition is where you will go to see the lesson that was delivered to your child for any particular lesson. Your child will need to know, of course, the chapter and the lesson that they're on, either the lesson that they're on or a lesson that they would like to access from a prior day. All right, but it's the chapter and then the lesson, they would select those. And this takes them through the start of the lesson. So the first part they get to is something called the animation, and they can click start or they can skip the animation. It starts with an essential question. And that is the first thing that happens in a math lesson is a question is posed to the students. This one is, how do you solve and check division problems? Don't worry, we're not doing that in kindergarten. So after the animation is done, and if your child chose to watch the animation, there's an arrow in the bottom right-hand corner that your child can select. And I'm going to go a little bit quickly through these slides because this is something that you'll go through with your child. It's hard to follow right now unless you're going through it with me. But the biggest part of this program is something called Unlock the Problem. Or at the kindergarten level, it is the Listen and Draw. It goes by different names. So Unlock the Problem or Listen and Draw, that is known as the productive struggle part of the lesson. That is where we present a little bit of information, possibly a problem, and we give the students time to think about how to do it. Now, it is based on prior knowledge. So it does make a connection to prior knowledge. So they will be able to think about something. We want the ideas to generate from the students rather than the teacher modeling first. So there will be no modeling done at the very beginning of a Go Math lesson. We pose a question, we unlock the problem, or there's a listen and draw where the child will develop ideas on his or her own, perhaps with a partner. And then we come back whole group to discuss those ideas. So that's the unlock the problem or listen and draw. And then later on, there's a share and show. So after the students have had a little productive struggle, they've thought about some ideas on their own, the class comes back as a whole. We listen to what all of the ideas are by the students. The teacher will gauge if there's some modeling that is required. And sometimes there is, and sometimes the students have a good handle on something already. And that's the beauty of allowing them to express their thoughts first. But then there's a share and show, which gives the students a chance to see if they understand the ideas that were shared and any modeling that took place. From there, your child would click on what's called the orange whistle, which takes us into the personal math trainer that I mentioned before. And again, this will make more sense to you as you go through it, but there are initially 2 problems that your child will complete. These are known as the 2 checked problems in your child's workbook. And I do want to add, what we see on the interactive student edition does not match exactly to your child's workbook. It will be the same type of problem, the same skill, but the numbers won't match exactly, which is a bonus because we get to see the lesson in one way, and then the workbook has the same types of questions, same skills with different numbers, so it offers additional practice for the students. So those are the 2 questions, we call them the checked questions. Those are the minimum requirements that students would need to move on to the lesson. And from there, they would exit and they would click on the arrow at the right and bringing them to the evaluate section of the lesson. So now that they've gone through all of the aspects of the lesson, you know, how well are they understanding those concepts? They would click on the red whistle. And you're going to get a copy of these slides, by the way, so don't worry about that. And so when we go into the red whistle, there will be more than 2 questions. Usually it's 10, it does vary, but basically your child will go through, and this is, by the way, when you go through a lesson at home in the manner I'm describing, your teacher is not going to get data. The only way the teacher gets data on what the students are doing at home is if the teacher assigned it and the child went into the things to do folder and clicked on the assignment that way. So the teacher gets the data on how students are performing when it's assigned. If you as the parent choose to go through the lesson again at home in the manner which I'm describing to you now, you can see how your child did at the end, but your teacher will not get that data. Okay, and these are all the steps that your child would do. They can check their answer for each question that they get to and click on next to get to the next question. They should not hit submit until they have gone through all of the questions. And sometimes, listen, if you're doing it at home, they may not need to go through all of the questions, so you'll have to decide. And then at the end of all of that, you'll get a results report. You may want to go through this with your child where they're not getting help on each question. Maybe you just want to see how well they're doing without getting help. Help is available within those questions. They can see a step-by-step. But it depends on how you'd like to use it. So that's in a nutshell how you at home can go through a lesson. Now, obviously, it's a little bit more involved in the classroom. There's dialogue happening back and forth between the students and the teacher, but at least this gives you a chance to go through the lesson at home with your child, should your child need to see the lesson again. In terms of other things to do in Go Math, I'm not going to click here right now, but I did create a short tutorial for you that shows you where to click. And then when you click on different icons, what that allows you to do in Go Math at home. But just to go through what that is, again, we're back to the home page. When your child logs into Think Central, here's the things to do, my library, my scores. The scores, that is what happens when the teacher assigns something. You can go into scores to see how the child fared on that assignment. So we would go back to my library. And I know the icons are small, so I just blew them up on the side here. And since we're speaking about literacy, you can connect literacy to your math lessons. In the Go Math program, we do have math concept readers. That is one of the icons in my library. So if you're looking to tie in concepts that were covered in class with the reading, this is where you will go. Okay, so you'll simply click on that icon if you would like to read the story or hear the story. All of the stories within the math concept readers have the sound symbol where it will read the story to your child, unless you want to read it together. The other spot that you can click on, I should say, is Math on the Spot. So Math on the Spot, these are videos, not the animation that I was pointing out in the beginning. Math on the Spot video tutorials that Mr. Berger, Professor Berger is typically the character you'll see on there, taking the students through an example or two that your child may have seen in class. The other thing that we get asked a lot is, what happens if my child's workbook is at school? Well, the beauty of this program is anything that is in your workbook, your child's workbook, is accessible at home. You would click on the Go Math Student Edition ebook. Right now, this says G5 for grade 5. Yours would say K for kindergarten. But this is where you would go to access all of the workbook pages that your child has. And the last thing that I would recommend that you click on is the glossary. If you click on this symbol here, the ABC symbol, it will give you a glossary of the terms that your child is using in math and what those terms mean. All right, we're going to talk a little bit now about what the expectations are for kindergarten students. And you'll notice here, I have two links. And again, you will have this presentation. So I'm just going to switch my screen. So click here for overview and expectations. So if you click on that link, it's going to bring you to the math department webpage. And you'll see it along the side, overview of math curricula and expectations. So you would simply click on grade K, which I'm sure many of you have done already. This is going to give you a snapshot. Just give it a few seconds. Maybe not. Let me try that again. This is going to give you a snapshot in terms of the vocabulary that is used during kindergarten, which is very important, in terms of, again, can you do at home? Looking at this vocabulary list and trying to incorporate this vocabulary into your conversations at home. That would be very, very helpful. This is our curriculum overview and the main areas that are covered in kindergarten, counting and cardinality. So in terms of counting, that is a very big deal in kindergarten. And when you're at home with your child, even something as simple as emptying the dishwasher, where perhaps you're counting the number of forks that are coming out of the dishwasher, or rolling a die, for example, and your child is stating the number on the die and then counting up to that number. Eventually, your child will be working with 10 frames. Right now, your child is counting to 5, and you'll see a 5 frame. We will advance to the 10 frame. So you'll be doing something called making a 10. So if you roll a 4, for example, on a die, you can ask your child, what number do I need to make a 10? That may not be something they can do yet, but we're leading up to that. So we have counting and cardinality, we have operations and algebraic thinking. Operations, we're going to be doing some addition and subtraction within 5. And of course, geometry and measurement and data. So as I said, we did start out the year with a little bit of shapes. Shapes will be spiraled throughout the year, but they're hit again in a major way at the end of the year as well. The required key fluency is adding and subtracting within 5. We do more than that, but that is the minimum that your children will need to be able to do. We have our mathematical practices, and we have helpful websites all over the place. I tried to give you some that will be most helpful for you. Any website that I've included for you to utilize, I've checked out myself. We try to make sure that we don't have ads popping up all over the place. Sometimes that happens, but we have to be very careful. So I have looked at all of these sites. These are some free interactive websites. Shepherd Software is great. Some of them do require Flash though, so just be mindful of that. The Math Learning Center is incredible. A lot of manipulatives there. PBS Kids, I know we all know that name. Okay, so this is for you, for your reference about our curriculum. And the second link that's there is the milestones that you'll be seeing in kindergarten. And that is also when you hit the math department's webpage, that is along the side, milestones in mathematics by grade level. And you'll see kindergarten at the top. And these include, not that we have to play it right now, but these include videos. Just going to pause that. Videos to show where your child should be in terms of each of these concepts in kindergarten. So if you have some time, I encourage you to look at those videos. So we recently added another tool for students. We were getting big requests for this one. It's IXL, and in the past, IXL started in grade 1 at POB school district, and we decided to expand that. So please know that your children have access to IXL. They may not have used it yet, and that's okay. Your child will find IXL right within the class link that I showed you in the beginning, where all of your children's apps are. When you log into ClassLink, and maybe you were trying that out tonight, IXL should be one of them that is there as well. Sometimes teachers will assign IXL in addition to the personal math trainer. That will not be in your things to do folder. Remember your things to do folder, what pertains to the Go Math program. If your teacher is giving an assignment on IXL, you would see that in your child's Google Classroom. And the other big question we get is, what else can I do at home? So there is a link here for at-home activities and resources. And this is also, when you go to our webpage, that is also along the side. You will have this presentation, so everything you're going to need is contained in that presentation. This is a good one here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but math resources for at-home learning. And then you can look for grade K. Okay, we have numbers within 5, which is what we're working on currently. You could look at student lessons. You could even look at the teacher's guide. All right, so this is where you would go if you want additional resources. And again, this page had a lot of other resources. There are games here as well. I thought this one was neat. The Math Learning Lab. It just shows you how things that we have in home can be utilized to talk about math and gain number sense. And we talked about emptying the dishwasher earlier, and here we go. We can count the forks and the spoons. So this is a great place to go to determine how you can incorporate math at home. All right, so that's where you can go to access all of those activities. All right. All right, so that is what I have for math right now, but we may have missed something or you have questions. So at this time, there is a QR code on the screen for a questions and answers live session. So Joanne is going to be monitoring those questions for us. So again, all you're going to do is hover the camera of your phone over the QR code, and you're free to ask a question, and you could jump back on to ask a second question if you'd like. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, I don't want to stop yet. I'll leave this up for a few seconds,
I was
Joanne.
gonna say, you can keep sharing, but we should tell the parents where they'll find, this meeting is being recorded, so you can always go back. We'll post it on the district website. And you can take a look at, if you wanted to look at it again, it'll be there. And I assume we're gonna be posting each presentation on your site, on your page, either the math page or the literacy page.
So again, we welcome your questions. Feel free to scan the QR code and ask any questions that you have. Joanne, are you seeing some questions?
Yep, I'm just getting some now. One of the questions was, oh, sorry. This is for, I know it's hard, but will the classes be doing some guided reading this year, even with COVID?
Yes, we actually are meeting about that building by building. Genevieve and I are meeting about small group instruction.
A parent is having trouble logging in to ClassLink. You could be on the student's Chromebook is probably the best. Otherwise, if you go to the district homepage, you can get into the ClassLink link on the page itself under students.
And if you're still continuing to have an issue, just make sure you have your child's correct username and password. That could be part of the issue as well.
Okay. Eileen, this is for you. How often are reading levels tested, and how is the information shared with parents? And what?
Oh, Joanne, I lost you for a second there. I got the part that you said, how often are they tested, and what was that? How is it shared? Genevieve, are you hearing her?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what she asked. You have it.
Okay.
Okay, so that yes, the reading levels are tested regularly in a formal way with a Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment. That's the tool we use, and that would be, we've just recently done them. Kindergarten students, we wouldn't have done that unless we see that the child is perhaps reading already, and then the kindergarten teacher may elect to do that. But surely we do it November, March, and May or June. And in the interim, in between those formal benchmarks, teachers take running records, and the running records can account for how many miscues the child has. So if there's no miscues or very little mistakes that the child's making in that level, and they're understanding and able to discuss the story content, they'll move them up to the next level and actually try that out. So there's no real science around, this book is exactly this level. Sometimes the range, it's a band of text complexity. So let's say KLM might be similar in nature. There may be slight changes in the complexity as it goes up. But the teachers are regularly meeting with the students with their groups. Typically, if it wasn't COVID, they would have a small reading group. With COVID, we intend to still be use some creative problem solving in order to meet with children in groups and scaffold books for them and with them, and not just have to rely on a one-on-one reading conference, which is what teachers are currently doing right now. They're doing one-on-one reading conferences with students.
Okay, so there's a question here regarding the screening, the dial screening. Are those results shared with parents? You know, how could parents find out how their student did on those assessments?
They're not shared with parents. Really, it's a screening measure. That was how we used to just be on the lookout for students who might have a language issue. The AimsWeb data profile, AimsWeb early literacy profile is what we use. And that's done 3 times a year to measure a student's ability to manipulate sounds and words. And that's an indicator if there's a high risk level for future literacy problems. So those students are being identified now, and you really wouldn't be able to say with certainty that that will predict a reading problem, because you have to wait to see developmentally. But there's a rate of acquisition that the children should be reaching. And each time we go through the AimsWeb probes, we check in with the child. That's just a screening measure that's to avoid future problems. We're trying to catch them early, find out if there's anything wrong, you know, if kids aren't blending or segmenting those words correctly, the sounds and words. Sometimes they need a little more work with rhyming words or, you know, letter manipulation, and we'll take them in small groups and do that. So that will definitely happen this year, regardless of COVID. There will be any problems that we foresee with a child's reading or any of these precursor assessments, we will address those needs.
Genevieve, this is for you. When will teachers start assigning on Think Central?
So that is their discretion. We do have some new staff as well. I know that they're collaborating as teams. Some will do it more than others. We don't have a prescribed time for when teachers assign the PMT. They may assign a PMT, a personal math trainer, to individual students to work on skills. They may assign to the whole class. I'm sure they would let the students know through the Google Classroom that there is an assignment in the in things to do. But again, that is the discretion of the teacher. I'm letting you know that it's possible that they could receive those assignments.
Okay. Eileen, there's a question here about a parent saw Raz Kids, I guess it was Raz Kids, in the class link, and they want to know if kids have access to that as well.
Yes, all of our classrooms should have access to Raz Kids.
Okay.
And that's up to the, you know, the classroom teacher rosters the students. The classroom teachers will give a range of a leveled range so that the child is not opening books that are really hard. There are a number of, you know, book platforms out there as well that I'll add to the website.
Okay. There's also a question here about the Fundations program, I guess in the virtual for any kids doing remote.
Yes, Fundations has gone virtual. So they've given us links right into the letter tiles being able to be manipulated on the screen. And I think that the remote teachers have been sending home, you know, there's parent pickup times on Fridays. So the parents are able, remote parents are able to pick up the letter tiles, the magnetic boards, and the things that the student will need to be, you know, moving around those letters and building words without it just being visual. We want them to have their hands on that. And also we wanted books in their hands. So the teachers should be sending home, the teachers of the remote students should be sending home book bags. If they haven't done so yet, they will be.
Okay. And there's also a question here, which I could probably answer, about if kids are advancing, how do teachers know that students are advancing, and will they give them books at appropriate levels as they move on? So that would be done, teachers will be doing independent reading conferences all the time with students, and that's when they'll see if the book is, you know, they need to move a student to another level, plus the benchmarks that they do. Mrs. Nina, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, finding the right book for the child is, not only the level, but also keeping that child's interested and engaged. So the teacher does a lot of investigative work to try to discover what really is of interest to that child, and book recommendations and book buzzes. So it's not only just the level, but it's also keeping them, actively reading and reading volume, keeping this up with reading stamina and volume. So the teachers will be checking in that they're reading, and that's as they progress. But with respect to kindergarten, the kindergarten teacher will identify our readers when they do shared reading activities, and they'll see who's already reading and get them into books. And they will also make sure they go back to some basic phonics skills, because that's the encoding or the spelling portion. So sometimes parents will say, well, my child is a reader and they don't need those sounds and symbols and that basic phonics. That is actually, when it gets to being much bigger words and multisyllabic words, unfamiliar words in third grade, let's say, and fourth and on up, those foundational skills are, critical right now.
Okay. And there's a question here for you, Jen, about Chromebooks used for math. I guess other than the Think Central, I'm assuming that's what that question
Do they
is.
mean Chromebooks being used in school?
Yeah, I guess it says, will we use the Chromebook for math?
So it's funny that Eileen and I have been meeting with the teachers, because we also follow a workshop model in math, although that's very challenging right now with how the classroom looks. We were talking about students working together in groups, utilizing their Chromebooks. Again, not to be used every day, but to use as a tool. There are many online fluency games that the students are used to doing anyway in one of their math stations. So in prior years, one of the math stations within the workshop model has been a tech station where the students are logging onto an app. So we're thinking along the lines of using the Chromebooks for students to work together in groups where they can remain socially distanced from one another. Aside from that, it's whatever the teacher would like to utilize it. But for math, I would say primarily it will be used for group work. It's not something that they're going to have in front of them for the majority of the time in a math lesson.
Okay. Well, I think we answered all of the questions, and so thank you. Again, please reach out to any one of us or your building principal or your classroom teacher if you have any questions, or we can support you in any way in ELA and math. This is a great, again, kindergarten is really a magical time, and you'll see your children grow so much in this 1 year. And again, thank you for participating tonight. We will again post this recording of this presentation, as well as all the materials that we spoke about tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jen, are you still screen sharing?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, you could press leave meeting.
Okay. Are
Okay.
we still being streamed?
We might be. Yes, it says live on. I'll talk to you after.
All right. Yeah. You want to jump on a